on time or maybe by 9:01. So, so welcome everyone who joined the session today and those who are joining now. Uh, this is a session on container, which is one of the hot topic. We have done couple of session on serverless Kubernetes in the past, and Docker. Advanced topic on advanced session on Docker, where talking on Docker security and other. We'll try to recall those sessions again in coming future. But this is uh, a great session in terms of, if I would say, is like for the starters, for the people who want to do a quick start on container orchestration, Azure Kubernetes serverless, Azure serverless Kubernetes, Azure Kubernetes services, and a mix up also, that at least they can build a container, run it, and they can manage those container at a very I would say, if they, even if they are novice, or if they are just wanting to understand it from the Azure platform, that becomes great. So I will start with the code. Containers and their orchestration is the need of the day, as they make the life of an engineer easy. Uh, I have personally found it very helpful. Whenever I build container, it becomes easy for me to deploy or set up anywhere. So I build a container, and now my container runs on even on my local computer and my server, and it become very easy. What our platform suggests, multi-cloud, to jump it from one cloud platform to another cloud platform. That's the beauty of container. If you have uh, VMs instead of those, obviously you will face issues. Moving to next slide. So this session is obviously on working with Microsoft Azure Kubernetes services, and we have with us Abhishek Mishra. Abhishek Mishra is a very seasoned speaker, and I have seen him speaking to multiple platforms. Even in the non-COVID-19 era, when he used to speak a lot on different forums and platform and events. And he's a fantastic guy. Obviously, once you hear him out, you'll find that out. So this is multi-cloud for you is a community of industry expert that runs a monthly weekly series on enterprise cloud and tech learning. This is for multi-cloud learning, niche engineering, stream implementation and migration management, multiple cloud and technology platform partners. We have multiple partner. We are supported by different cloud MVPs from different platform and team, data science learning, data warehouse. So data science Bhaskar leads that the data science team here. Data warehouse, programming, stream engineering, free certification. Obviously, all our sessions are endorsed with free certifications from our platform. Um, we ideally do session on Saturday and Sunday. And so about Abhishek, obviously I would ask Abhishek to speak about it. But to start with, I've already given a little background about Abhishek here. So Abhishek, if you can speak about yourself.
Yep. Hey, hi all. So I'm an author with Shishap Corner, and I write a lot of blogs there. I'm a speaker with Shishap Corner as well as with other forums. So I did Power Platform, Global AI Tours, and you'll find me speaking at various places. Uh, and by profession, I'm a cloud architect with Accenture, and my area of expertise is intelligent cloud, platform as a service, serverless, and automation, mostly on Azure. And very lately, I've started getting my hands dirty on AWS. So I have a total of 14 plus years of IT experience working across leading organizations. So we know, right, in IT, like we keep hopping and grabbing up opportunities that comes in our way. So that's a quick introduction on me.
Okay, cool, yeah, and I've already given a little initial intro about you already.
Yep.
So this is me. I am inventor, leader, mentor, founder, enabler. I'm the chief evangelist of multi-cloud for you. I have a multi decades of direct service to the IT industry. I am ex-publicist RVS Microsoft, and this is my LinkedIn profile. So I would say it's over to Abhishek, and start with Abhishek. If you can share your screen and start.
Yep. So let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen,
Yeah.
especially the slide on the agenda. It's good, right?
No, so we are able to see your Azure portal view. So I think it's still refreshing.
Okay,
Anjani,
let's
I think we can
log
see his
in.
screen. It's
Yeah.
visible and
Hi.
we can see the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Now I can see.
Okay, cool. Then let me start. So basically, I have a lot of things to cover, but based on the time I get, I will try to pitch in. So I'll start with giving a introduction to containers and Azure Kubernetes services. I believe most of you would be knowing about containers and what Kubernetes is, but still, for the interest of the wider audience, like I will be doing that. Then, once I've spoken about the containers and AKS, I will speak about Kubernetes service architecture in on the Azure platform specifically. So here actually I will not just speak about the AKS, but rather like a bit more than AKS architecture. Like I'll try to touch upon networking as well as scaling aspects that I've listed down in appendix. So based on the availability of bandwidth that I have, and in the demo, actually we'll see a lot of things actually. So I want to reserve much time of this event for the demo so that I will be able to talk regarding the uh, containers offerings on Azure platform. So we will see Azure Container Registry in action. We'll see Azure Kubernetes in action. We'll be building a .NET Core application. So it's basically we're not building. I have a pre-built .NET Core simple application, and we will containerize it using Docker, and then push it to Azure Container Registry and pull the images from AKS and have our application there. It's a lot of cool stuff. So let me get started. Feel free to pause me whenever like you have any queries, and I'll help you there. I know like it would be a very easy topic for most of you, and a few of us would be new to containers and AKS world. Whatever would be the level of question, don't mind. Like it's like a open learning session. So anything, any queries you have, feel free to ask. Okay, so let me move to the next. Okay, so introduction to containers. So what a container is? Does this minimize? Okay, cool. Now it's down. Okay, so containers are lightweight virtualization concept, right? If you compare it with virtual machines, so when we started with virtualization, okay, let me take one step behind and come from there. Earlier, we used to have physical servers. So on the servers, we used to host our softwares and expose it to the public world, or rather like public internet or somewhere. So then came the era when we started virtualizing the things, and we came up with hardware virtualization. So in hardware virtualization, what we used to do, we used to have the infrastructure underlying, and on top of that, we used to have a hypervisor. And on top of the hypervisor, we used to spin up virtual machines that used to run on top of this hypervisor and consume resources from the underlying infrastructure. So that was pretty heavy compared to containers. And the advantage we get with the containers is that you can see here. So we don't have any hypervisor out here. We have the infrastructure and the operating system. And in a sense, we are virtualizing the operating system. You can see instead of having some hypervisor or anything sitting on top of the infrastructure, we are having a container engine sitting on top of operating system. And this does a virtualization on top of this operating system. So what happens is this operating system gets shared by multiple applications. You can see like I have 3 applications which are running on this operating system on top of the container engine. So it will have their own isolation, like they'll be running in their own isolation as if they're running on 3 different physical servers or VM, whatever you can expect. So end of the day, so it's a operating system level virtualization that we see here. And obviously it's lightweight and portable across environments. Okay, let me try to explain this, what I mean by portable across environments. Let me tell you a nice example. Like when we join, like I am a person who has hopped many jobs. So whenever I join a new organization, what is the first thing as a developer we do? We set up the application, right? So we download the source code, we build it, we install different softwares and keep it ready so that like I can run it and my application comes up. So I need to manage installations, server installations. I need to manage all my application configurations, change web.config, change this, change that, and have my applications up. But in the container era, so what the advantage we get is everything, like all the my configurations, like I'll take the base image, I'll install my software installs, and whatever the installables that are needed for my application to run, I will install on top of that image, and then I will do all necessary configurations and keep it ready, and host the application as well, and burn it as an build it as an image and push it to a public registry or a private registry, wherever it is. So registry is a place where we keep the images, like Docker images. So once a new joiner comes in, he can directly pull that image. He'll have all the configurations, everything in. He will run that image, and the container will be up, and his app will be up and running. So isn't that cool? So what this was an example I gave, but what exactly how it happens is, so you build your application, containerize it, have all the settings, everything in place, and then push your container to a registry. Suppose I'm in the stage environment, I can pull it from the stage environment and run it. Tomorrow in the production environment, I can pull in the same container and run it. So I can easily port across environments with ease. So that's the real-time advantage that we get with container, and it is very easy to use and easy to adapt also. Like you'll see, like I'll just fire a couple of Docker commands today, and tomorrow you'll say that Docker is easy and I can do it. So any queries here? Okay. So if you have any queries, feel free to ask, even if like we're moving to the next slide. Okay. So what is Kubernetes? Okay, we'll come to Azure Kubernetes service, but let us try to understand what is Kubernetes and what was the challenge for which we got into this Kubernetes thing. So what happens is, when we are hosting application on a container, on a single container, there will be chances that the container might be down. Like end of the day, it's a virtualization, it's a software that is running. If something happens, some crash happens, then the container goes down. And there will be scenarios where you will be playing across multiple containers, like 4 or 5 containers, like one container for
ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಸರಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬರ್ತದೆ.
Aplujis, would you mind going on mute? Thanks. So like we'll have multiple containers. One container would be hosting the front end, another container would be hosting the back end, another container will be having the database, and all these containers will be talking to each other. So we need to manage so many number of containers. So then will come the concept of like how to make these containers highly available, so that if one container goes down, my application should not be down. So all these are the real-time challenges that came with this container offering. So to handle those challenges, like we got something like container orchestration platforms. Like we had Docker Swarm, and now like Kubernetes from Google. So all these platforms, they help us in like orchestrating our containers, or rather in simple words, managing our containers. Suppose my application has 8 to 9 containers. So what Kubernetes does is, it helps in managing those containers. It takes care of like when one container goes down, immediately it will spin up another container that will do the work of the container that went down. So it will quickly be spinning up replica sets and all. So lot many things that it will do. So that is why we came into Kubernetes. And then, like I remember when I first time set up a Kubernetes cluster, like way back in 2015, it was very 2016 or 17. So it was very hectic. So it's just configuring. I'll come to what master nodes and all. So just creating the master node it took us around 1 or 2 days. We had to do a lot of R&D and find out. So what Azure and other cloud providers they have done, they have abstracted all these complexities, and they own those master nodes or the control plane for the Kubernetes. So the complex part is managed by the cloud providers, and you just need to like spin up the nodes or the clients where you need to host the application, and give it to the those control plane or the master node that the cloud providers provide, and let them manage it. So this simplifies your thing, like it abstracts your complexity. So when you are saying that Azure Kubernetes service, you are creating a Azure Kubernetes service, that means you are creating the master plane or the control plane or the master node for Kubernetes. That is like that will be controlling your nodes, and your application will be hosted on nodes. We'll see this in action. So that is why we have this Azure Kubernetes service, and I call it as a managed Kubernetes on Azure platform, because Azure platform manages and abstracts the complexities involved in setting up the control plane for Kubernetes. And it's a great tool in creating microservices architecture. Like when we talk about containers and Kubernetes, the first thing that strikes our mind is microservices. But again, AKS is not just, or Kubernetes is not just limited to microservices. You can build any kind of application. You can build your 3-tier application and host it very well. But again, microservices are the best examples or are best deployed on Kubernetes platform. And we have multiple ways to create a case. We can have Azure Portal, you can have PowerShell, Azure CLI, ARM templates. So many ways we can spin out a case and manage it. So any queries? Any doubts here? Or I can move next.
So I wanted to ask the difference between normal Kubernetes and Azure Kubernetes.
Okay. So what happens in normal Kubernetes is, when you say Kubernetes, it has two components. Okay. Let me just move to the next slide. I'll tell you. There are two components. These nodes, okay, where your application runs. Your application runs in these nodes inside pods. We'll see that. And also you have a master node, that is the control plane, right? Get this right? We have a control plane. We have nodes that are handled by the control plane. Okay. So this control plane, like when you say normal Kubernetes, when you are building a Kubernetes cluster, then you will end up in creating everything, the control plane as well as these nodes. But when we say Azure Kubernetes services, so what happens is this control plane is built and managed by Azure. You need not worry about it, because this is the complex part. It has a lot of complex components. I'll show you actually in the next slides. So we need not worry about this. You just need to worry about these nodes. You need to tell, I need 3 nodes or 2 nodes or 1 node, and host your application on that. So this complexity is abstracted when you say Azure Kubernetes service, and this control plane is owned by Azure Kubernetes service. You need not worry about creating it. When you are creating an AKS service, this gets created automatically by the underlying Azure platform. Just need to worry about the nodes. That clarifies, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So in this architecture, we have I've already spoken about control plane and nodes. So just to recap, inside the nodes, we'll have our pods running. So pods are the smallest unit of are the smallest unit in AK, in Kubernetes. So inside which we run the containers, and inside the containers actually we actually host those images. So we'll be having multiple pods running inside the nodes. Ideally, in a single pod, we can have a single container. Or in complex scenarios, I have seen where we have multiple containers inside a single pod. But again, that's a very complex thing, and hardly we see that. So look, inside nodes, our application runs inside pods, and this is the control plane, that is a master node. And whenever we write any kubectl commands, or we instruct the control plane to host my application, to deploy my application, that is done through API calls here. You can see I've written API calls, and those API calls are fired from our kubectl commands, right? So I'll show you how to write kubectl commands, or you can also directly call those APIs, but that's way complex. So kubectl is the best way to call those APIs on control plane. And where does this nodes? I said that inside the node we have a pod, and inside the pod we have a container. So where does this container come from? Where does this image come from? It comes from this container registry. So whenever a pod is up, the first step is it will pull an image from the container registry, right? So this is how the high level architecture of Azure Kubernetes service looks like, and control plane is owned by Azure. Okay. So this is the control plane architecture. You can now understand why I used to tell control plane as very complex, because we have an API server. What does this API server does? It listens to all the API calls. So whatever API calls you fire here, so they're listened by API server and acted upon by it. Then we have a etcd. Etcd is a key value storage, like where you can actually definitely when we are like running any applications, we'll be having key value pairs. Like we can have, for example, we can have application secrets. So I'm not getting deep into those areas. I'll just touch upon. Just try to know that etcd is something where we keep the key value configurations for the cluster, maybe like something like you want to keep your database connection string. So as a key value pair, you can keep it in etcd. And this controller manager, what it does is it internally it controls a lot of smaller controllers. So for example, we have a concept of replica set. Replica set is an identical set of pods. So whenever a single pod goes down, so another there would be another pod in that replica set that will be serving it. So maybe you can define, like in a replica set we can have 4 pods. So every time we have a replica set control manager that is controlled by this control manager, that will make sure that this replica set will always have 4 pods to serve identical pods to serve the request. And if one pod goes down, it again takes care of spinning out a new pod and keeping it ready. So that's the beauty actually. So suppose you have 4 pods serving a request. If one goes down, so immediately it will self-fill. Automatically another pod will spring into action and it will start serving it. So that's what is the job of control manager. Then comes the scheduler. So what scheduler does is, so I said that we run our applications on pods. So as a developer, what you will do is you will provide a deployment configuration to API server, and there you will specify what would be the pod and what would be the pod configuration, where to pull the image and all those informations. And it is the duty of the scheduler to decide on which pod has to be created and your deployments has to be scheduled for. So this scheduler does that activity. Any doubts here?
Hey, Abhishek, I think there are a couple of questions from Mohammed
Okay.
Wasim and Anthony.
Okay.
Mohammed Wasim is asking, is Azure has their own service discovery? Does Azure have its own service discovery?
Yes. So discovering the services right inside. Yes. All these things are taken care of. You need not worry about service discovery and all those things when you're doing a AKS. So it's a managed Kubernetes. We'll see that actually. We'll see that in action when I come to the demo.
Sure. I think there are a couple of questions from Anthony as well. He's asking,
Okay.
which means infra is a managed cloud, is managed by cloud provider. Is it same like Azure Key Vault?
Yes. Like infra, sorry, I didn't get it. Azure, infra means this AKS infrastructure.
What I'm asking is, etcd you are talking about key value pair, right? So is it kind of Azure Key Vault?
No. Azure Key Vault is different. This is all these things will not be visible to you in AKS, but etcd is a component of Kubernetes. Internal component of Kubernetes actually. It is different than Azure Key Vault, but yes, you can, if you want to keep anything in Azure Key Vault and use it with AKS, you can do it. You can keep your secrets in AKS and you can use it for sure.
Okay.
But this is different, huh? Like etcd is a component of control plane. It is not Key Vault. It's a key value store actually, basically. Not just secrets. You can keep any something maybe some kind of keys X, values Y, some kind of key value. You can keep it in etcd.
Okay.
And someone asked about infrastructure, like everything, this entire thing, control plane is managed by AKS, and also like node also you just need to specify how many, but the node anyways, you to some extent you need to manage. I'll show that when I'll be spinning up an AKS. So it covers all, right? Yep.
Yeah, Anthony mentioned that during the control panel explanation that the control panel is managed by cloud provider. We don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. The entire control panel is managed by cloud provider. So I
got
ahead.
one question.
Yep.
Yeah. In Azure, how many master nodes they are running? They are running 3 master nodes for us. We don't know which node goes down, right? If the master node goes down, or pods will be hanging there, right? Or nodes will be. So
master
we
node,
know,
like you're talking about the control plane.
yes, yes.
That is actually abstracted to us. Actually, we don't have, but they have the mechanism of high availability and all. But again, it's
So
I believe they take care in the background. We don't have any control over the control plane. Actually, we don't see
so
that.
even we don't know how many master control planes they are running, right?
No, we don't know anything. That like see for me it's a single tenant architecture. So I assume that it will be a single control plane, but we don't have any visibility on control plane. We don't see that.
Okay.
We create an
It is
AKS, so-
automatically handled by Azure Kubernetes services. It's like you can understand. You just have to go there. It's ready made. It's a hotel room. You just have to go. Don't bring your bed, anything. Go and sleep there. So
Yeah,
it's something like that. It's a honeymoon
understand, but
place.
no, it's kind of, if you know the etcd is ready, like you have a backup of etcd, you can bring up the master node anyway, like not in Azure. I'm saying, like general Kubernetes.
Yeah,
I'm
obviously.
talking. If there is no
Yeah.
etcd available, there's nothing. The master node goes down. Nothing. We lose everything, right?
Yeah.
Here actually the underlying platform will take care of all those things. Actually, the Azure underlying platform, the underlying platform as a service, whatever fabric they're offering. So like it will take care of everything. You don't have any control over etcd, API server, scheduler, and control manager. What you have control over is node. But don't worry about these concepts. This has been taken care of and abstracted to us. But your things are secured actually.
Yeah, bring your container and run. So it's very easy. So you don't have to do all of these things, nitty-gritties. So ideally, on a cloud platform, there are three ways to most of the cloud platform. I've given a session similar to this. You can go on our YouTube channel to find. That was for Alibaba Cloud. Even I think we have given one session for AWS also. And we'll see that when you talk about serverless Kubernetes, all have implemented almost a similar thing. So you don't have to worry about master node. You just have to worry about the node where you work on node, and where you just have to deploy your container, it will work. And then the deployment obviously is separate in Kubernetes we talked about, and that's the beauty of it. So this is the same everywhere. And if you go at the level 2, they will give you a platform where the control plane and the base structure which is there is being managed by the cloud provider. Still, you have the you have the access to master node and play with the worker node, whatever you feel better to structure it out. And then the third one is obviously you buy it, or you actually host it on your own VM and then play with it. So that's a raw based
Hey
Kubernetes
guys,
that
sorry
you
to
consume on
interject,
this.
but I
Yeah.
think we can take the questions later. Let the speaker complete the remaining part of the presentation. I think we can take the questions towards the end.
Yep, actually,
I
a lot
agree with
to.
you. Yeah.
But again, essence is like in a case like everything is this entire thing is managed by Azure. We'll see those actually, and node is something that we have a control over. You can't even see this when your AKS is created. Okay, so this is your node. This is how your node looks like. So we have this kubelet is the agent that facilitates the communication between the control plane and the node. And we have a pod. Obviously, I told like why you can see inside the pod. I tell that it's just the container. You can also have have a pod with Azure container instances. That is a serverless Kubernetes. So it's a scaling mechanism that it gives like you can burstably build so many container instances on the fly. So like so many pods you can burst into scale. You can scale as burstable on on the AKS side, and you can have multiple pods to scale. So that's the beauty of serverless Kubernetes. It's different from KEDA. KEDA is like hosting your your entire container inside a Azure function. So that is something different. I'll park it now for now. So we have a kubelet that helps communication between control plane and the node. We have the pod where your application is hosted, and this kubeproxy helps in networking. Okay, so let me go to the next thing. So we are pretty much clear with the AKS architecture right now, right? We have a just to repeat, we have a control plane on which we don't have any control. This is managed by AKS. That's why we called it as managed Kubernetes. And Azure supports managed Kubernetes. And this is a pod where actually, even like when you create the pod, I mean to say node. So all this kubelet and all these components will be created by Azure itself. So you need not worry about installing a kubelet and all those things. You need not worry about. Just need to simply consume and use it. Okay. So in the demo, so what I'll show is I already have a .NET Core application. So we will containerize it and push it to Azure Container Registry. And I believe most of you would be, if you are from Microsoft World. We can do it from Visual Studio as well. I'll show that route, but we will push the image from using the Docker commands. Then we'll be creating an AKS using Azure portal, where like most of our queries will get cleared actually when we spoke. So then we'll deploy AKS application to AKS. So we'll run a couple of kubectl commands and deploy it. Okay. So before this, let me take this first step, because spinning out an AKS takes 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll first, what I'll do is I'll first spin out an AKS in the portal. And while it is spinning out, we'll do the rest of the things. That works, right, guys? Okay. So I'm inside, let me just refresh it. I'll just show you what are the different components I have in my Azure resource group. I have a, would you mind going on mute? Okay, cool. So I have container registry already created. If you can see here, this is how, what is if you are not from Azure background, let me tell you what Azure Container Registry in a brief. So Azure Container Registry is is a private private container registry implemented from your Docker Hub. Right, in Docker we have a container registry, right? It's a private registry, extension of the Docker container registry. So here actually inside the repositories, so we have our images, and this was a dry run that I did before the session. So you see here. So intentionally I have not deleted it so that you have a hang on what we can see here. This is inside this repository, we have a image called as dry. This repository is basically the image sample dry run, and the tags here. It's the latest one of the tags. So we'll be using the same container registry. I'm not spinning out. So what I will do is I will spin out a new Azure Kubernetes service. So go to the containers, and here you'll get Kubernetes service. Again, we call it as a managed service. You will understand it why. So I'll create inside the resource group. So resource group is like a container inside which we keep all those all our resources that we spin. So AKS multi-cloud for multi-cloud for you, and reason, let me do it East US. Then you can choose actually how many nodes you want. So let me just go with one node. And one thing to note here, this, you must be knowing, if you're from Azure background, you must be knowing we have different image sizes, right? Sizing of the images. So we need to always stick to this DS2 V2 because it supports nested virtualization. And unless we don't have a nested virtualization on Windows platform, we can't run a Docker image on it. So that is why you can see, you can also choose for a higher version for this DS2 V2 by doing a change size. So I'm taking the node count as 1. And I spoke a bit about virtual nodes. Virtual nodes, it's a serverless Kubernetes. So you can spin out Azure container instances. So let me disable it. I'll keep it simple. And also I don't want any scaling to happen using VM scale sets. That's fine. Then the next thing is authentication. So in the Azure world, we can have a managed identity as well as a service principal, right? But here actually, I'm going to use system assigned managed identity because I want to integrate the Azure Container Registry with my AKS. And if you're familiar with Kubernetes, then you know very well that Kubernetes itself is a isolated environment, right? So we need to integrate the external components in the Kubernetes network and get going. And this system assigned managed identity will take your on behalf of your identity, like Kubernetes will spin out or rather establish the trust relationship between different resources. So that's why I used it, so that I'll be like integrating it with the Azure Container Registry in the integrations section. And if you're from Kubernetes world, we know like there are different kind of network configurations. One is like basic kubelet, and another is the advanced Azure CNI, we call it CNI network configuration, where actually your pods and your VL and your nodes, VNets, the nodes and the pods, all of them get the same IP address as your from a single virtual network. So we'll see if we'll get time, then we'll pitch into this. It is there in the slide. And by default, just remember that any questions here? Is someone pinging any question?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of questions.
Abhishek, I think we'll be taking the question at the end, maybe
Okay,
before
cool.
your appendix, because considering the time, we have to take care of everybody.
Okay, cool. So
And obviously, we are picking up the we are taking the question in the background. Once your session, once your first page of the session finishes, you can take the question.
Yep, we'll do that actually. So basically by default, AKS reserves 30 IP addresses. So you need to, whatever subnet and all you are selecting, or you are creating your own subnet, make sure that you have at least 30 IP addresses available for you. And let me just do this container registry, integrate this container registry here. And I don't want to do any container monitoring right now. I'm disabling it. Now let me do a review and create. It takes 1 minute around. It is in the background, it is validating whatever configuration I gave. Then I will do a create. Okay. So my deployment has started, and let it deploy. And meanwhile, I'll just come down to my Visual Studio. So it is a .NET Core application that has been built using Visual Studio. I'll just quickly run it and show you the output. So basically what it does is, like you can see, Visual Studio supports, okay, this is the output what we have, and we are going to deploy it on AKS. And to add on, inherently Docker is supported by Visual Studio. So you can see whenever you're running the application, it has been some containers in the background. So if you want to generate this file Docker file, you can easily do it in Visual Studio. There is container support. Wait, sorry.
And adding to Abhishek, it's more like you can use any platform for containerization. It's obviously we are showing it from by giving an example of .NET Core. This can be Java or anything, and this can be on any Windows or non-Windows platform. It's the same as you build content, and then you have. It's more like you have to understand how he is pushing it to the AKS and how he's trying to running it and managing it. So it's obviously it's a part of the flow. So yeah, so it can be Java, it can be anything.
Yeah, whatever
And
you
this can, not just Visual Studio, even .NET Core can be written in Notepad, Visual Studio Code, and runs very well. And Abhishek will show you the Docker push through the command only, so we'll not use Visual Studio, right, Abhishek?
Yeah, I'll show it in the command line, and just hinting on that in Visual Studio also, we can add the Docker support here, and it will generate this Docker file for you. And you can also publish it directly from here. Actually, you can do a publish, but I won't be publishing it. You can see here, I've selected my container registry. From here, actually, I can publish it. You can create a publish setting and get going. But I'm not going to do all these things. So what I will do is, I already have a Docker file. Let me just walk you through the Docker file. It would be a quick one. So it is how it looks like. This is the base image that we'll be using. It's a slimmer. It's a lightweight image. And from here, like what we are doing is like we are using this booster 3.1 booster image to like build our application. So build this Docker, sorry, this .NET Core application, and it's a Linux based image. So and finally we are publishing it. So basically, if you don't want to do a .NET Core, any kind of Java or any Python application, anything, so you can get in your own container and you can write your Docker file and you can get going. So AKS has no restrictions. It accommodates all technologies. Okay. Let me quickly like see if are there any containers currently? No. Cool. Any images? No. Cool. So let me quickly build a container. Like my Docker file is in this path in my demo app. So what I'll do is I will build this image. Maybe I'll call it as sample app latest. So it will build it. Takes a while, like it will first pull the image and it will build on top of that image. You guys are with me, right? Like, you know, like how a Docker file works and all. Like, so any queries there while it's building?
Abhishek, this is Prakash. I'm completely new, but following it. I will be
Oh.
taking like further session to understand.
Okay, cool. But you are with me, right? You are getting like what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to tell and what I'm trying to do.
Yes. Yes. I have understanding the Azure. So, but in Docker I'm new, so I'm following. Yeah.
So basically, this is the command. I have listed down the command, all the commands here. So this is to generate the image. This Docker build. What it does is it will generate an image called a sample app with the tag, with this tag actually, sample app colon latest. And this image, like you will be pushing it to SCR, like Azure Container Registry.
Okay.
And locally also, I will run this and I will show you.
Okay.
Like this run command. So see, the build has been created, and when I do a Docker images, these are the commands. So when I said Docker image list A, so I can see this is the one that I built just now, right? So I built the image. Now I have the image with me. So what I will do is I will now run this image. So when I run this image, it will spin up a container and it will actually run that image like so. It's like in the runtime, this image gets booted up as a container. So let me show you what I have running now. Yeah, use this window. Localhost 8080. So see, in the port 8080, you can see here I have given like while running it. So I had given port 8080 and mapped it to 80. Right. So this 8080 is my like system port, and this is the containers port. So, and here my app is up and you can see it. Okay. So now let me push it. So for that, for pushing also, these are the commands. Like first I need to log in to my ACR, Azure Container Registry. So as I said, it's nothing but it's it's a Docker registry only, but it's a private Docker registry implementation by Microsoft on Azure platform. So I had already authenticated it, else it would have asked you for credentials. So I had picked up the credentials. You can get the credentials from Azure portal. I'll show you like once I pushed it. So where to pick up these credentials. Then the next thing is we need to tag that image before we push it. So let me tag it. Now the next step is I will push it. So now it will start pushing the image to Azure Container Registry. This command pushes it to Azure Container Registry.
And this is same, this will be same, almost same on every cloud platform. So if you try to push this in their separate container repository, you have to do these 3 steps that Abhishek is showing.
Yep,
Either on
it's
AWS, Alibaba Cloud, DigitalOcean, Linode, Azure, anywhere. You go there, you have to do this process. It's like giving your own container a jacket of that cloud platform, their own repository, and then pushing it to that.
So all these things are same actually. The Docker part, how Anjani said, like it's all the same. So it's just about on the the jacket thing we do. So here actually this is the sample app that we pushed just now, and this is the tag we gave. So it's 9:46 p.m. and we have pushed it. Okay. So this was the older image that I had. So now I will orchestrate this on Kubernetes. The next step. Let me just quickly. I need to tell you where to pick up the access keys. This is your container registry in Azure. If you go to the access keys section, you need to enable admin user, and you can pick up this username is this, and these are the passwords. Okay. So let me go to here and check if my resource is created already. Yes, deployment has succeeded. So we are good. Let me get into this AKS cluster. And if you're familiar with Azure, then we can do instead of, I could have used Azure CLI locally and used it. But instead, what I will do is I'll leverage this Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is nothing but Azure is hosting both the bash and your CLI commands here, and you can run your bash and PowerShell commands out here. So let it come up. It takes a bit. So while it's no, I need to have it in bash only. Okay. So I said we have bash as well as Cloud Shell. So what is the first step? So we have spinned up AKS cluster. So my first step is to see to get the credentials of AKS so that I can work on it, because anyways it's in the Azure platform, but again I need to get the its credentials, so that or rather I need to authenticate myself with AKS so that I can do the deployments and all. So for this is the command actually, aged AKS get credentials. AKS-multi-cloud for you. Cool. So this is the one. So when I you can see here, it will get the credentials. This is the resource group where I've created, and this is the name of your Kubernetes service. And you can see here, I didn't do anything on the control plane, nothing. I directly went into the Kubernetes, and here I can see whatever nodes I had specified, it would have been created. Let me first fire a command kubectl command. So it's by inherently you get it with this Cloud Shell, no installations, nothing. It's very it's so friendly. So let me do kubectl get nodes. You can see we'll get whatever nodes we have here. You can see if you remember when I created the AKS cluster, I had selected a single node, right? So this is the node that is we have created, and it's Azure only it has created it. I have not created anything. I just spinned up the Kubernetes and everything is ready for me. Okay, so let me go to the deployment file that I have created. So let me open this. So if you see here,
and the best and the best thing is the kubectl command, right? So when you try to do the kubectl command in most of the other platform, I don't think that is so easy. The way Abhishek is showing it here on the cell. So there are many things has already been hidden from you, so it becomes very easy for you to interact with platform.
Yeah, it's so easy. We get everything with this Cloud Shell. So that's the beauty of Cloud Shell actually. So this is the deployment file, deploy app, deployment configuration file I've created. So most of you, I believe, are from AKS background, so Kubernetes background. You will understand it. Just for the interest of other people, I'll say that we have a single replica, and this is the name of my application. Then the most important part is here. So from where the configuration will be pulling out the image. So for us, it's sample app, right? If you're we have packaged it as sample app here. If you see here, so we pushed it as sample app : latest, and that is with the same name. It has been pushed to Azure Container Registry, ACR. So sample app colon latest.
Yeah.
I
So
think
now
it
now
will
it's
be here.
now it will So now it will pull from the Azure Container Registry rather than your Docker Container Registry or anywhere, because you already pushed it to Azure Container Registry. Now it will pull it from there, and then it will try to create the pod, make it Kubernetes ready. Right,
Yeah,
Abhishek?
even we can use, yes, that is what it is. And this is, you can also use a Docker registry also here. And there is a concept of secrets. You must be know, like if you're from Kubernetes background, we can create a secret, and there is a section like the secret section we can add. We can interact with Docker registry as well. So there is no limitation to it. Since I was showing it on the Azure platform, so I used Azure Container Registry, and this is a service. So there are different kind of services. Like I'm using a load balancer service that will expose my pod to the external world. We have different kind of services: cluster IP, node port. I'm not touching upon at this point of time, since like we just have 8 minutes for the session. So those things but let me just tell you in a very high level. So we have a like a node port or rather like a cluster IP. What the cluster IP will do is it will ban your pod to get exposed from the external world. And but any pods inside your Kubernetes cluster can access the pod sitting behind a cluster IP. And node port is something, it will open your gateway to the external world or rather like a public outside your cluster. And but the node port has some port reservations, like it doesn't work on 8080 or 80. So for that I have chosen load balancer, which is same as the node port, but you can balance a lot of node ports under load balancers as well. And the advantage of load balancer is like I can use the port 80. So that's why like this section, what it does is it exposes my pod, like the application that is on the pod to the external world. Okay. So let me copy it. Let me open Nano here. You can see I have selected Bash here. So I can do all the Bash things out here. So before that, let me check if I have, or else let me create a new file, nano deploy.yaml. I will paste it. So here we go. Let me just verify it, whether I have changed sample app latest. Control S. Yes. Okay. So now next I will apply it. kubectl apply deploy dot YAML. I need to also add this enforce. Okay, it will do the deployment, fingers crossed. So now I can see my pod kubectl get pods. It's creating the container. You can see the status. It's running, cool. So if you want to see more on the pods, so you can do getctl describe. I'll just show you what has happened. Describe pod. Let me copy this. See, these are the things it did. It started, it created a created a container, started a container, created it, then successfully it pulled the image. Like it's not in a sequence actually, like, so therefore you can see it's maybe like this. So it's pulling an image, so it successfully pulled the image, then it assigned it. So all these steps that has happened. So what Kubernetes has done is, whatever the configuration file we had deployed there, when we did a kubectl apply command, this configuration got applied to your Kubernetes cluster. And this particular thing, sample app latest, this image from this location, it has pulled out. You can see it has pulled here from that location, and it has started the container. So I know my container is up and running. So let me just verify it again. I have a single pod and it's up and running. Now what? I need to get my service. kubectl get services. Okay, you can see here, right? My service. I have this services load balancer service. that will expose our pod. So you can see here, I've given here load balancer service. The name is my demo app. So this is this my demo app, and this is the external IP. Had it been a cluster IP, if you can see here, like had I said that a cluster IP service will not expose your pod to the external world. So here actually you can see it's none. So that means there is no external IP generated for it, and only inside the pod you can do the interpod communications using cluster IP. So maybe sometime later I can actually help you with this. Check. So what I did was like, let me just repeat. I just copied this external IP so that I will fire it and see if my application is there. Cool. This is our application, right? We hosted, and you can see it is up and running just in 20 minutes in my AKS cluster. And earlier, like I told you, right, in 2016-17, when I created the first Kubernetes cluster, it was so hectic. I take 2 to 3 days. My boss was screaming, "Why? What the heck you are doing? Like it's taking so many days just to create the cluster, and when you are going to deploy your app." But had we had that privilege of using AKS at that point of time, my app would have been up and running like this in just 20 to 30 minutes. So that was that was the end state of the demo that I had planned. So maybe like we can go to the questions. I had few more things. Okay, before we go to the questions, so I'll just like I couldn't cover this appendix part, but in a high level, I spoke about wherever I used the components. So what I will do is I'll just tell you the next steps, what to do. So as a next step, like see, I gave you a demo of Kubernetes AKS, but it is just 10 to 15% of AKS. If you really want to learn AKS, go to this Azure resource. So this resource, this is the learning path published by Microsoft, and you love it actually. They like this is all about like Fifi goes to the zoo. So in 50 days, you will become from zero to hero with Kubernetes. And it's like we have a character called as Fifi. So the first day is Fifi goes to zoo, and there and Fifi explains you all the basic concepts of Kubernetes. We didn't touch upon the replica sets and all those things, right? You will get it here. So it's a day by day guidance that is in 50 days. You will be a hero in AKS. And also you get a free access to Katacoda. So Katacoda is like a simulated environment. So where actually you can run your AKS workloads and test it and run it on the fly. If you don't have an Azure portal with you, that's fine. There is no limit in learning AKS. So if you do not have an Azure subscription or something or Azure portal access, you can use this path and use the Katacoda, do the workshops, and you should be get going. Okay, so a few other things. So also like you can follow, this is the documentation, Microsoft documentation. So official documentation that you can use. So to learn AKS, this is really cool. So I love this documentation, and they've created it in a very nice way. So one more thing, this thing like you must have, if you're from Microsoft background, you must have heard about this Microsoft Learn, right? In Microsoft Learn also, like these are the free courses that you get from Microsoft. So here you will get the modules, AKS modules, where you will get the same introduction to AKS. It will be similar to what I just spoke in this session. And you can also do advanced service AKS service workshop. And like you can also get a lot of inference from my blogs, like my articles in C# Corner. You can follow me in C# Corner, and I have started a new series on this. It's still working on. This weekend, you can see another article like on volumes, AKS volumes and all. So you can also like follow this link. Okay, so that's all actually I had. So now like it's over to you, Anjaneya, like and the questions we can address if we have bandwidth.
Yeah, so we can handle the question, but before that, let me share my screen, and then obviously we'll announce the speaker code. Abhishek, I pinged you the speaker code. I believe you can announce, and then we can.
Yeah. I'm just pulling it out.
Let me share my screen.
I can call out that code.
Yeah, just give me a
Or-
moment. So
Yep.
I will give them the how to. So okay, so I think so. We move the slide. Those who join most frequently in our session. So based on the feedback from people, we move few of the slide at the bottom so that we should start early, and we have starting early from 9, so we don't give a space for that 5 minutes. So as you know, why are we doing this session? So for the people who join recently, who have not joined before, so our primary motivation are we are not trainers, we are seasoned practitioners. You can see Abhishek, me, Bhaskar, anyone who gives session here, they are the expert. They are battle hardened guys from direct working with the client or the big companies or corporates where they have to deal with production server every day. It's like differentiating the monk and the priest, sharing of knowledge, build optimism, build organizational and social trust within the tech community. So the biggest thing that we're trying to build is the social trust, because whenever you go and give the interview to someone and someone is sitting in front of you, he doesn't trust you. There's a complete loss of trust in our community, in the tech community or engineering community, and that everyone feels when they go and meet someone or someone is sitting at the other side of the desk. Enhances the capacity of innovation, reciprocate what we have learned in the industry, and lower the entry barrier for newcomers. How do you claim the certificate? So to claim the certificate, you can go on to multicloud4u.com/streams, or you can go on to www.fifthir.com that you do. And then if you have any question, you can go to telegram.im channel, which is there on the portal, and you can do it. So uh, there is like how you can watch the session. So obviously Webex is there. Other is directly you can go into multicloud4u.com/stream, and there would be a TV option there. You can watch it. Due to COVID-19, we are like cloud radio is partially stopped. Sometime we open it, sometime we do not. But we are trying to bring it back once the life get normal, and when people start moving or walking at this point of time. This will mean for that you don't have to be on the screen. You can go back and use it. Uh, then there is a certificate option directly on this page where you can go and claim it, even on the fifth IR here. This is like you can create your account on our multi-cloud website, and then you can get a help from there. This is our YouTube channel. You just have to search on the YouTube multi-cloud for you. I hope all this recording are there, and we are bringing an option that even if you miss the session, you can still do a session on YouTube and claim your certificate later. Okay, so it's a time to announce the code. So Abhishek, you can announce, and I will try to take them to the.
Yep. So the secret is AMAKS. Can I ping it in the chat? Is it fine?
No, don't ping
Okay.
it. You simply
Okay.
announce it. I think it's a caps. Everything is caps.
AMAKS. A for Apple, M for Mango, AKS. Azure Kubernetes Services.
Yeah, and you need to see on the screen once you go to the fifth IR or the website multi-cloud for you see that this statement, like this header, is there working with Microsoft Azure Kubernetes services, and then you put your name, phone number, and email, and then move next. Obviously, yeah, let me put it for a test, and then you put your secret code here. It's all in caps. There is nothing in small. And once you do it, put next, and then you will get your certificate in 2 minutes. If you don't get your certificate within 2 minutes, this is a Telegram channel. You just have to connect to this Telegram channel, and one of our teammate will support you out. Yeah, and now the questions, please. Yeah.
One question I see, like service mesh. Are you referring to Service Fabric?
Yeah. So someone asked about service mesh, right? So
Okay, let me tell that. So maybe I assume like he's asking about Azure Service Fabric. So
I think mixing microservices concept with Azure Service Fabric. I think mesh is a concept and the part of microservices. And obviously Kubernetes can be helped here, but Service Fabric is something which is Microsoft has built in, and that has more feature and feasibility. it's beyond Kubernetes, something where even at the VM level, you can do multiple things. So I think let's listen it from Abhishek. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, more or less in the same lines. So, like when we started, like even I also had the same question. Like I had asked in one of the sessions to one of the speakers, like in one of the events. So, like how it goes is like earlier we used to have Azure Service Fabric. So, but I've never seen. I'm not sure whether it supports Linux platform or not. But it never used to have any. Like I've never done any kind of Linux things or nodes there. It was like we could do Windows notes and all, like, and it was also really cool actually, like but again, so it was a Microsoft own thing. It is same as AKS, but AKS is much more than Service Fabric, and gradually like both are two parallel offerings from Microsoft, but now world is shifting more towards AKS. So more focus is on AKS, and we are seeing a lot of new things coming in AKS. So in Azure Service Fabric, like things are like pretty much like normal. Like we were
Yeah.
not seeing much things happening there.
Hey, Anjali,
Yeah,
could
so
you
it's
please
it's
repeat
like a
the
yeah.
code for generating
Yeah,
the
obviously.
certificate?
Abhishek, if you can repeat the code.
Okay. A for Apple, M for Mango, AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services. Or else, like to make it more easy, Abhishek Mishra, A for Apple, M for Mango, Azure Kubernetes Services. That is AKS.
Got that. You got that, Abhishek.
Did right?
Yeah.
Apologies if I have stepped a bit more than.
draft படிச்சு காமிக்கிட்டோம் உனக்கு எழுதுனதை படிச்சு காமிக்கணுமா
Oh, someone is talking. Yeah. You can go on mute. Yeah, another question. So, so there are multiple questions. Bhaskar, intercommunication happens just like creating service endpoint with Azure VNet. Tushar,
Okay. Intercommunication happens just like creating service endpoints with Azure VNet. Yes. Yeah. Underlying. See, I had those slides. I could have shown that, but this it's the same thing only. See, so this VNet, everything is in a VNet. When we say AKS or whatever components are there, all the nodes and everything, they're in the Azure VNet only. So and everything sits inside that VNet, and that VNet is different from like the public network we have actually. So everything happens in that VNet only, all intercommunication, interpod communication. So when we say the kubenet thing, or rather the basic networking option, so how it goes is we have a separate VNet for your nodes, like nodes, I mean the VMs that we created, and a separate VNet for your pods. And your pods are intrinsically by default not exposed outside. That is the basic networking what we get. But in Azure CNI, what we do is it is the same VNet in which like both your pods and the nodes are in, so that pods can be accessed outside, and you have a lot of control over the on the VNet. So in the earlier case, you don't have any control over the VNet for the pods. It is wholly and solely assigned and managed by like Azure platform. But in this case, in advanced networking, so the VNets definitely you have a control over. You can define your own subnet and use it. And end of the day, you need to make sure that you have 30 IP addresses available.
Thank you. So basically, internal communication between the pods, it happens on basically using the private IPs within that particular virtual network, creating a subnet within that virtual network, and internal communication happens. But if it has to communicate with an external world, that the load balancer comes into picture, which I believe might be configured with the public IP to get the interaction going.
Exactly. That's why we saw there. Now we had two IPs there. So shall I? So can I share my screen again, Anjanya, just for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll just show you actually what I spoke about. So rightly said, as you said, rightly. So if you see here, we have two IP address here. One is if you see the load balancer, we have one external IP address for outside, exposing it to outside, and as well as like one IP here. That is internal IP, internal to the VNet.
Yeah, got it, Abhishek. Thank you so much.
Yep, and what I spoke about the VNets. So maybe I'll just quickly run you through. So if you see here in the basic networking, like what I said, like this node has a different IP address and the pods have different
Yeah, I can
address
make
space.
out the first three octets are same. So
Huh.
it is /24. If you do
Huh.
the CIDR. Yeah.
Exactly. So the virtual network is different and this pods are different. But in case of, I didn't speak about Calico, like let's skip it. Maybe sometime I'll talk about it. You can see here like all the nodes and pods are in the same VNet. But again, when we say a case, it's a VNet only. Everything happens within a VNet. It's a private, private space itself. It's nothing public. So you need to, even like I'll tell you, like you'll face a lot of challenges. I didn't have it. Like for SQL Server, it is sorted. You can connect to Azure SQL PaaS. But when you're doing a MySQL or any other integrations now with your, because we'll have, right? Because when we say we are building a PaaS-based service, so we can have our Kubernetes cluster on AKS, and that AKS needs to talk to MySQL database PaaS service of Azure, which is outside the cluster. So in that case, it's not that simple that we can simply call the connection string and get it done. We need to do a OSB, there is a concept from Cloud Foundry, like what is that? Open broker service we need to leverage, and using that we need to like establish the integrations. And you also saw I have integrated the SCR with AKS, right? When I spin the cluster. So I did that integration so that the Azure AKS can talk to SCR. And also, like if you're not doing that from there also, you need to, suppose you have not integrated while spinning it out, then you need to actually run this command to attach the container registry. So it's not, it's a private VNet only.
Yeah. Any other question?
So
Nice.
I have one question. Like, suppose our pod comes down, and
Okay.
sometimes in production it happens that status shows crash loop back off. So do you have any
Yes.
idea about it?
So what happens is when I'll give you a nice example when you will see this. Suppose you are building your application. I've seen this many times. So maybe like your front end and back end pods, right? The back end pod, you have some IP address, and the front end pod is unable to discover that IP address. So what will happen is your pod will go down, or rather, like there is some, for some reasons there is a reason, and the pod crashes. Then it won't be able to recover unless you like do the fix and deploy the right thing.
Okay.
Normally,
Yeah.
see.
So we get So we try to get the pod name and file and everything. So before that, we also download the head dump and thread dump. So can you explain that too?
Head dump and thread dump, I'm not aware of, because in AKS world things are simple, but you can do a describe, right? I'll just show you. Like, let me share again. So that's why I showed the describe. So normally what I do, normally this crash loop thing we see, maybe this is an orchestrated code. Like I've done it so many times. I've done so many dry runs. That's why we didn't see a crash loop. But first time you can get these things, and it's a very nice question, huh? So what you can do now, you can just describe the pod here. So you'll see all those. I see all those information here, like the entire dump here. So from the dump, I can actually make it out. Like I analyze these dumps, so and see like what went wrong. So from here, actually, if like image can't be pulled, so I can see here. And also for application logging, also in Azure, we have a excellent mechanism. I need not do all those things. So we can actually get insights out of it. Actually, one sec. In monitoring, here actually I have not enabled the insights when I created the cluster.
I think application insights is the best thing for this.
So in Azure world, you can actually see monitor your containers from here. So all these things, like what failed, what happened, you can, if anything on system side, like I mean to say pod or anything, it's unable to pull the images or not, you can analyze from this, you can do this, describe the pod, and you can do it. But this monitor containers, you can get into this. Apologies, I should have done this. I have never expected that the question will come. Else I would have definitely done this, and I would have showed you like how you can have a X-ray of the entire pod.
So we'll soon set up another session from Abhishek. Obviously, there are two areas which people are really sorting for. One is the networking, setting up networking correctly in the Kubernetes services, which is complex, and then the monitoring the content. And then obviously there are other advanced topic that comes up, which is more related to microservice, like adding up sidecars and all. ICTO and everything. But yeah, I think these two things are very important, and I think that will solve your problem where you're facing. Most of the problem that you face is more because of the networking issue or connectivity issue. It tries to resolve that connector. It tries to run it again and again, and then goes into a loop and then crashes. There must be some threshold limit to that, and then it says, "Okay, boss, I'm not trying more," and then crashes. And
Yeah,
that's
it
why you
gives
get
up actually.
yeah, GitHub. Stuff.
But Azure makes your life simple, huh? Like you need not do all those things. So you just need to application insights, monitor containers, view logs. So here you'll like get a complete X-ray of your application.
We are using Azure in our application.
Oh, cool. Then you should leverage all these features, huh? Like monitor containers, view logs. So like you'll get more insights out here actually.
Yeah, it was very helpful. Thank you.
So that is why
Any
like
other question?
yep.
Yeah, Abhishek, yeah. So just want to
Yeah,
check
yeah,
any other
that's why like I just wanted to say like that's why we call it as a managed Kubernetes, because a lot of things are built in by like Microsoft and baked in and given to us ready made. So like I think there was a question on Kudu. I just saw Kudu. I don't think you can do much here. It's on web app.
Yeah, it's on web app. Yeah.
So we are not doing a web app here, but AKS piece, I don't think Kudu will come into rescue console. But yes, it's a very nice tool. Like maybe sometime I should speak about it. Like it's a very exciting thing.
Yeah, obviously. So when you build web app and even in the function app also, I believe you can use that. Yeah.
Yep.
Do we have any tool or command to know the status of our pod, like how long it's been in uptime, something like that?
You can do that. Describe pod. You can do. Wait, let me share again. I should not be stopping it. I did it right. You can see here actually the age. I did a describe. So all this information. The command is this. kubectl describe pod. I'm describing my pod, and it's telling the even like you can also don't describe it. Get pods also. You can get it actually. Age you will get. It's this pod is been running from 24 minutes. Simple, like same AKS commands here. Actually, like Microsoft has not done much here, so we are doing it from here. Like,
okay.
Those things might be you. I'm not sure. Like we'll get it from those monitor logs and all. So monitoring the container and all. But here you will get it actually the simple AKS commands.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Ramesh here. I just want to know one thing. Do we have any separate certification in Azure for Kubernetes?
Azure DevOps you can take. I think it has a content on AKS. I need to check, but because all this like was bundled as AKS in one of the seminars I attended for Microsoft. But I need to check on that. There is no separate AKS certification. You will get AKS contents in Azure DevOps to the maximum, and also you'll get it in like AZ, the new AZ 303, right? The contents have changed. AZ 204 and AZ 303. Infra exam, I'm not sure whether you'll get AKS or not. So
okay.
it will span
And yeah, one more last question from my end, and just want to know if I want to become expertise in AKS, and what are the things I need to be expertise, like AKS monitoring, AKS disaster recovery, like what are the main points? For example, if I want to face in real time, if I get the project, what are the things and modules I should be expertise? So for example, I said monitoring, and another thing is so like a disaster recovery backup. So like this, what additionally I have to be expertise in that?
First of all, like when we say AKS, the expertise should come from the networking. Networking is the most complex thing in AKS. Okay, so that is the first thing. You should understand like how the pods communicate and all, and how to set up the network. Like you'll find a lot of challenges in the. This was a I've done multiple dry runs, so I could walk you through in one shot. But when you'll be doing it, you'll face a lot of issues while networking the things. And again, once you're done with the networking, then the next important thing you need to take care as an application developer is how the Kubernetes scales. I didn't speak about it, so I'll just quickly show you. So there are different ways: cluster autoscaler, horizontal pod autoscaler. You have serverless scaling. So all these things you need to know, because you need to design your application and think about it how you your application will behave in a case. That is the second thing. Third thing is, yes, we had someone asking, right, if that goes into crash loops, how to debug and monitor. That is also a very important aspect, because in real time, in the real world, you'll see your pods crashing, and documentation says like pod recovers itself, but the reality is the pod will only recover whenever there is a system issue. But if I have an application issue, then you need to debug. In that case, you need to learn those debugging and monitoring things. So these are the areas. So these kubectl commands you should know, like I showed, describe pods. There are a lot of other commands also you can explore and find out. And apart from it, you should also know these things: monitor containers, logs, how to do the app insights for this, and get the insights. Sorry, I'm saying it's insights only, insights, metrics. So how your pods are behaving. So all these things you should actually be knowing to.
And adding to that,
grab the difference.
you need to be a little expert in automated deployment in terms of, because
That's the
if
most
someone, yeah,
important thing actually.
yeah. So adding to the add-ons, like Abhishek was talking about Cloud Foundry, you can extend it. We are bringing up session on that also. We are bringing up session on um,
You said automated deployment something?
automated deployment. Yes. So DevOps, right? So an automated DevOps is more like maybe using HashiCorp, maybe using Terraform directly, playing with those, and then it's a abstraction above what you do directly with the Kubernetes services, or maybe Azure DevOps also. But you need to be a little firm there also.
Yeah, it's a very vast area actually. It's not just what Anjane said, Cloud Foundry and all. You need to use them, because you will
Yeah,
feel
slowly
suppose.
you will gradually understand, and then if you go into the Google Cloud Platform, then even the now the VMs are getting deployed on containers. Sorry, on AKS. So sorry, Kubernetes services.
Yeah, so many things it's happening, and AKS is still evolving actually. And I didn't whatever I said is just 10 to 15%. So you need to think about the volumes also. So
Yes.
you are having a SQL server in your cluster. So you need
Yeah.
to plan a volume for that. You need to have a volume claim. So there are a lot of things happening. So
Yeah,
the
volume,
right
yeah,
ans-
volume is another biggest thing here. So claiming the volume, claiming the disk space, backing it up, and then these things get complex because when you play with any container-based orchestration services.
to rightly answer your query, the best answer is you should know the basics like volumes, networking, scaling, debugging, and all these things, and get into the project. And when you are doing the project now, you will unlock a lot of things, and then you will gain your expertise. You can unless you don't get into the real production environment for AKS, it's difficult to become an expert. But again,
I
when
do
you
agree.
play
Yeah.
around with this, yep.
I do agree. Yeah.
Okay, exactly. Thank you so much.
So one example I gave, MySQL, we spent around a week or so to figure out how to integrate MySQL to AKS, Kubernetes cluster, AKS cluster, in fact, so long back. So that was a big struggle. Then we found out the Cloud Foundry tools, OS, Open Service Broker, and all those things. Helm charts. So I didn't speak about the ingress. So when the ingress, there you'll have scenarios when you'll be having an ingress controller in your case. So for that you need to have Helm charts and all. So Helm charts will help you install an ingress controller. So those kind of things will fall in place actually. It's a journey actually, learning a case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Abhishek, I got one question. So, what is mean by horizontal auto scaling and vertical auto scaling in AKS? How it works
Okay.
exactly?
I'll just quickly touch upon. We see when we say we have a horizontal pod autoscaler and a cluster autoscaler. So cluster autoscaler, what it will do is, so it will like I said, like virtual machine scale set. If you remember when I was provisioning the AKS, so like I was adding. I said that I need a one node and I didn't opt any scaling option. So had I opted for that, like some scaling options there, then I would have got this cluster autoscaler capability. That means it would have added nodes on the fly. So like suppose 3 nodes, like in this case, like suppose 2 nodes are serving the request, you get some additional traffic, then an additional node will get added by this cluster autoscaler, and it will serve the purpose. But again, the challenge is like this node node is anyways, it's a virtual machine, right? It will take some time to spin up. So to bar this, they have come up with another option like virtual nodes or like the serverless nodes, where actually we are utilizing Azure container instances on the fly to quickly in seconds burst to several container instances and quickly handle the load. So that was about the cluster autoscaler. Then we have a horizontal pod autoscaler. What it does is it scales at the pod level. So cluster autoscaler scales at node level, and horizontal autoscaler scales at the pod level. So these are the basic scaling options we have with AKS.
How the resource, like how they use the resource limit in a horizontal autoscaler. So
Okay.
like pod is running on one node. So if the one pod uses more resource, other pod will automatically die, right? So it has to look for other node or something.
That will be handled by the underlying Azure platform. You don't have control over it. Yes, that is optimized by Azure.
The resource limits and all.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So it will take care of those things. So again, like it's like these pods are similar to our it's same as those serverless applications only. You need to plan your cost and everything accordingly, else it will keep burning.
Okay.
It will burn your credits. So that's why I said, like when you are saying that AKS, so you need to plan your networking, everything in advance. And once your cluster is created, you can't make those rollbacks.
Okay.
Yeah, Abhishek, this is Joshua here. I'm having one question.
Would you mind being a bit louder, actually?
Yeah, is this fine now?
Still not fine. Can you be a little louder?
Actually, I'm louder on this. Something went wrong in the mic. Okay, I will ask the query afterwards. No problem. You carry on.
You can simply ping it and then we'll try to answer it. Type it.
Yeah, sure. I will do.
Okay, so yeah, I believe we have taken most of the questions, and I think we are already late for more than half an hour. Yeah.
There is one question which I raised earlier. Is it audible?
Yeah, I can.
Abhishek, I believe you. For how long you are able to take questions?
I was asking about the UAT deployment. Like if you want to restrict this application to be internal, not exposed to outside world. So what changes I need to do? Okay, on the as Kubernetes set up a deployment or whatever be it. Okay, how do you make this application to be very internal? Okay, what changes I need to do?
So you need to say that you need to expose it to like inside the AKS cluster, right?
Let me explain. Okay, like we have multiple environment, like UAT, prod. Okay, for UAT, before I release into prod, I'll be doing the same testing on UAT first to make sure my application is working good. Okay, but I don't want to expose my application, web application for an UAT, right? For example, UAT might have a different website. Okay, I like to have that internally. Okay, for my internal testing. I don't want someone to attack my UAT application. So I like to make it internal to me. Only when I release to production, okay, only that application is exposed. So where do we make that?
You can do it in Azure easily. You see, end of the day, everything is on a virtual network, right? In a way, you are restricting to the virtual network, but again, when you're using this load balancer, this thing like you are exposing it outside, right? Anyone can like handle this. Maybe you can use some kind of you can build some kind of network security groups or something, or like some kind of user-defined routes also. Like you can also have UDRs. So where actually you can block your access to the external world. Like inside the Azure only, it will be or whatever IP address you have. So those things you can configure.
There are multiple things. You can add up reverse proxy. You can add up. You can manage it directly from the DNS server, and then further to that, obviously, as Abhishek said, load balancers are there. Then you have NSG network security group. Then there's a you can manage few of those with the web application firewall also. And once you go inside, you have the internal firewall available, and obviously you will have to put that your UAT into the virtual network, and you will have to find out if you really want to expose it to external world, or you simply do a tunnel to your corporate network and it's just available to your corporate network.
So this is something though in infra folks will be able to help actually. They will do it quickly actually. Like even I'm not from infra background, but they do it pretty quick. Like it's same as like limiting your any application, right? You have your corporate applications. They just curtail it, right?
But
They
also
don't.
like anything specific in Kubernetes world. You need to do something specific in the Kubernetes.
No, nothing specific. It's see once you have exposed it as a load balancer, it is as good as you are exposing an application from IIS or any web server, right? So then the tricks will come how to like limit.
So in fact, at the top, it's using your using your same infrastructure, right? So again, in the background, there is a virtual machine somewhere lying beside. There is a virtual network where Kubernetes is working, and then there are endpoints configured. There are secure connection configured. So at the network layer is the same. So obviously, you will not find any problem.
Yeah, just to add on to it, see from the load balancer, you can configure a lot of things. You can configure either an express route, since I'm from the infra side, you can configure an express route to the client environment, a dedicated private connection altogether. You can have a site-to-site connectivity. You can have a dedicated VPN configured. There are 4 or 5 options which you can do in order to restrict the traffic.
Yeah, and if you have to access it from like something to the outside world, you will have to configure net gateway also. And without net gateway anyway, this will not work. So we will have to set that net gateway also.
So how do we access now? Like internally, like we need to log into some kind of a Bastion host or something. No, how do we log in now? We restricted to outside world, right? So how do we log into that application now? Like
Yes, Bastion you can definitely use. Bastion server, yes, definitely you can use the Bastion server.
So here, so for a serverless option, obviously the portal has the detailed infrastructure for it, because it's serverless Kubernetes. So you will have to mind it that this is like most like something like a software as a service platform kind of thing, right? So here you will find the whole the way Abhishek was trying to expand up and things like that. So you will have to give access. Limited access to the people on this on the portal or part of the Azure Kubernetes management service, and you can directly connect to it. So, and obviously you can connect through SSH. Then obviously at the networking level, as you said, right? So everything can be managed through secure route, and then at your console level, you will have to connect to the host, and then you can directly play with the kubectl command without going outside without exposing your connection to the internet, right, Abhishek?
Yeah, like we need to do the kubectl inside either the Azure portal. You have to like if you can also do it from outside, but you have to give your Azure credentials and all using Azure CLI, and it's not directly you can do something. And again, like exposing your website, like it's up to you actually how you want to handle that. You like if it's in a VNet, so like your
I can give access to my internal testers or internal developers.
Yeah.
So if it's possible, like user level, okay, only those users can able to access the application. Even outside the world, that's fine. But only these people can able to access. Okay, something like login, user, password. I'm not sure. Okay, some kind of restriction. Because
so when you're saying access, so you need to access to the website or you need the access to the Azure Kubernetes cluster.
Because my application, my Kubernetes service is going to create a web application. Okay, so that's what make yes. So end of the day, it's using the Kubernetes service, okay, to develop the web application. I want to restrict the web application now, okay, especially for UAT, not to the outside world.
Okay, so you're talking about the application level, like exposing the application. It holds good, like however you will do for any of your other web application, na? It's same. Just assume that your application is hosted on some kind of server and it is serving it. And in this case, it's not an IIS or Tomcat, it is AKS.
Yeah.
For AWS EKS, there is something called EKS CTL for cluster provisioning. Is there something, any specific tool in Azure as well for cluster provisioning, or we should go via console only? Is there any specific tool?
There are a lot of ways you can provision your cluster, not just console. I did it in Azure console, like Azure portal, right? So there are a lot of ways you can create. Like, let me just flash my screen. So you can use Azure PowerShell, you can use Azure CLI, you can use ARM templates. You can also use Azure DevOps pipelines and Terraforms, whatever way it is there to like create your clusters. And also, like, you can upgrade your clusters, like all those things using these commands in Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, ARM templates. So,
and Azure DevOps is very strong. So in terms of if it has been enabled, obviously Azure DevOps takes time to get everything enabled for a new platform that comes up into the Azure. But one that is there and available on the Azure DevOps, it becomes a very easy build task. It's complete. It's a complete flow.
Oh, okay.
Okay, guys. I believe we'll have to wrap up the session here. And we'll definitely this was a very interesting session, very interactive session, and we'll try to get more session like this. Obviously, we'll have Abhishek. I will try finding his next schedule in his calendar to set up another session with everyone here. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Abhishek.
Thanks.
Giving us time. This is really fantastic and really a great session.
Yeah, it was also nice interacting, and thanks Anjane and team for this opportunity, like multi-cloud for you.
Okay, so Gaurav is again asking for code. So, so if you can repeat the code.
Yes, it's AM, all caps, all caps. A for Apple, M for Mango. That is AM. Azure Kubernetes Services, AKS. That is
Abhishek Misra,
AKS.
Abhishek Misra, Azure Kubernetes Services, all in caps, AM, AKS. Okay, thank you, everyone. So level 2 certificate we are trying to bring in. There will be a question-based level 2 certificate, and that's obviously part of our paid journey, and that's due to come maybe in the in 1 month at max. And there will be mobile app, and then we'll have batches for, like, if you let's say if you take 10 Kubernetes sessions from different speaker or from same speaker on different topic. We'll try to map the path, so learning path, so it becomes easy for everyone to grab it, and that becomes more interesting. And then you will get the option for level 2 and level 3 and level 4 certificate based on your participation and interaction.
Yeah, that's what I was planning to ask, and then you.
Yeah.
I think but you answered that.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Abhishek and all.
Thanks. It was a wonderful session. Great audience. Nice interactions.
Yeah, very helpful actually.
Yeah, all engineers here, so you will find everyone very getting interested and